Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Ask Windows Central, where we take your questions. This week we're going to be talking about Windows on ARM and when will it be able to compete with Apple's M1. And what about Windows 12? What's it going to focus on? And will we see a new Surface form factor launched with it? All that and more. Let's get to it. All right, Zach, first question is for you. This is actually really interesting. The person's asking that with every release of Windows, basically major release, we've seen a new Surface device launch. That is a new form factor. And so we're hearing that, there's going to be a Windows 12, which I'm putting in quotes because we don't know if it'll actually be called that. But assuming it is, will we see a new Surface form factor? And more importantly, what could that be?
I really love this question. To give some context to that, yes, with every sort of major version of Windows in the last handful of years, there has been a new Surface form factor to go with it. With Windows 8.1, we got the Surface Pro 3. With Windows 10, we got the Surface Book. With Windows 10X, we would have had the Surface Neo. And then with Windows 11, of course, we had the Surface Laptop Studio. So could we perhaps see that happen again when Microsoft rolls out the next major version of Windows, which is currently sort of rumored / expected to make an appearance in 2024? I think it's very possible. If we take a look at the current market and what's up and coming in the tech space, foldable PCs seems to be it. Intel has already predicted that they're expecting a number of OEMs to start shipping foldable PCs this year, and I assume that trend will continue into 2024. And that may be a good time for Microsoft to come to market with its own sort of take on what a foldable Surface PC could be. We saw them try that with the Surface Neo. That was a dual screen foldable. I think if Microsoft is to try PC foldables again, it will be a single screen foldable. And I think maybe they could tie that with a Windows 12 launch with enhancements to Windows 12 for foldables maybe. Again, we're calling it Windows 12 in air quotes because we don't know what it's going to be called. It could be called something more abstract. It might be another Windows 11 update. We just don't know at this point. But 2024 is when the next major sort of client release of Windows is expected. And with it, I would be shocked if Microsoft doesn't have a new sort of form factor and a new sort of vision / marketing idea to push with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your assessment. I think foldables are going to be the way to go. And it's interesting because sometimes Microsoft is not the first to market with a new form factor. In fact, the Surface Laptop Studio is, that design has actually been around. HP just released a device only about a year earlier, the HP Envy Folio, which was an ARM device. And that has a pull-forward screen, and I believe it was Acer also did it and has been doing it for the last few years. So Microsoft just kind of came along, modified it, perfected it, you may say, and released a device. So yeah, I think they're going to let the OEMs go first with a foldable display PC. And in fact, Lenovo just recently teased one coming out this year. So we'll have to see, but I think that's probably going to be the bet. And I think, by that time, it'll be a much more refined experience and more ready for mainstream.
Yeah, we've already seen patents from Microsoft which suggest they're exploring 360-degree folding screens. Currently, the sort of limitation of folding displays is that they can only fold 180 degrees because of physics. But there are patents that suggest that these companies, including Microsoft, are looking into screens that can fold all the way around, just like the current Surface Duo can. So that would be super interesting to see, and that could be Microsoft's sort of unique take on foldables. Everybody else is 180 degree, but ours is 360, and that's what this enables, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I believe LG also demonstrated this display technology. They'll be the ones behind it, so that'll be interesting. That and also a trifold device. We did see a patent for that as well, which looks like something out of Westworld, and I wouldn't mind seeing that, especially if they can combine maybe a phone experience, a dual screen experience, and a tablet experience all in one device, thanks to having 3 separate sections. But maybe we're thinking a little too far ahead here.
Okay, next question. The design of Surface Laptop has largely remained the same since Laptop 1. What design refinements can one expect or hope for in the next or future generation of Surface Laptop? Go on, Dan, you should take this.
Surface Laptop is one of the most interesting Surface releases because, in my opinion, they got so much right on version 1, which is why we haven't seen really any major redesigns to it. It's kind of the exception. Sometimes we talk about their, 3 release rule, where they, on the 3rd version, they have to get the form factor right. We're seeing this, with Surface Duo. We expect the Surface Duo 3 to be the big release. We saw it with the Surface Pro series, of course, as well. Surface Book, they decided, after that, no Surface Book 4. So, But the laptop is the exception. Like I said, it's just been so good from the start. So how can it improve from where it is? Well, it's going to really come down to the display. When we spoke with Dell recently about what they were most interested in, they really said the display technology. And I think they're right on that. The display takes up so much battery life on a device. I don't think people appreciate it. So although we want things with like 1,000 nits of 1,000 nits of brightness for things like HDR, that's going to really nail the battery. So if they can get lower power consumption, that'll be a start. We are expecting with Surface Laptop 5 for them to deliver a 120 hertz display, which is something we already have in Surface Pro 8 and Surface Laptop Studio. So I could imagine that coming right away. I'd also wouldn't say no to those bezels getting a little bit thinner. They're not terrible right now, but obviously the trend is to go even thinner. If you look what Dell is doing, it's I believe 91% or almost 92% screen to body ratio. It's absolutely insane. So I'd like to see them go from a 13.5 to maybe 13.6 or 13.7. But that's kind of it when it comes to the display. And also, fingers crossed someday an anti-reflective layer, which is my pet peeve. I think then the Surface Laptop will still be basically perfected. I'd also like to see them keep at least one Alcantara version around. The other change, though, really comes down to the Surface Laptop 15-inch version, which I'm not totally blown away by. I get it. It's a thin and light Surface laptop that's slightly larger, but they use the same size battery as the 13-inch model. And that makes sense. It keeps it light. It also cuts down on production costs, but at the same time, it doesn't deliver as much either power or battery life as you would expect from that device. Like right now, I would say that the Samsung Galaxy Book 2 Pro 15-inch or the Book 2 Pro 360 is almost a better device at this point, except it has a lower resolution 16:9 display, which is one of my other pet peeves. But we'll have to see if they can modify the Surface Laptop 15-inch to make it a little bit more compelling. Maybe adding Intel Arc graphics would be a big start for that. Do you have any thoughts on this, Zach?
Yeah, I think it's funny with a laptop. Where do you really go with a laptop? The whole point of the Surface Laptop is it's a laptop. There's no real gimmicks to it. So I think if there's going to be any major changes to that line, I think it would be in design. And I would guess if Microsoft was to change up the design of it significantly, they'd probably follow what they did with the Laptop Studio. Imagine a thinner, lighter version of this. Instead of the thick base at the bottom with the two-stage design, they just cut off that sort of bottom stage and have that thin layer on the top as the base. They get rid of the pull-forward display to have a normal sort of traditional hinge there, and release that as a Surface Laptop in the future. I would absolutely buy that device in a heartbeat. Keep the haptic trackpad around, keep 120 hertz as you mentioned. All of those display improvements would be nice to see as well. Have the rounded corners if you must. I know not everybody likes that, but I'm personally a fan. And ship that as a future Surface Laptop. I'm buying that in a heartbeat.
Let's compromise. Let's make that the Surface Laptop Pro. And then we could still have a regular Surface Laptop. And I agree. I think that would be actually a really smart choice for them to do. All right, next question. We've been talking a little bit here about Windows 12, again, in air quotes, because we don't know if that's what it's actually going to be called. But it is the next major release of Windows, slated for 2024. So the big question is, what are they actually going to do with it? What are they going to focus on? Zach, let's alleviate some people's concerns. Do you think they're going to radically change the UI again?
I would be shocked if they did a Windows 8 style change. However, I wouldn't write it off. This is Microsoft. But, let's be real here. They've learned from their lessons with Windows 8. I highly doubt they would do something so drastic as to sort of disrupt people's workflows on traditional form factors. But with Windows 12, what can we expect with it? It's too early to really nail down exact things. I've heard whispers here and there. I think, going back to the whole foldable thing, if we were to see a Surface foldable in 2024, Microsoft would have to do some work to Windows to sort of accommodate that form factor, because currently Windows 11 doesn't do much to enhance that experience. It doesn't adapt to those postures that you get with a foldable, especially a 360-degree one, if that was something they wanted to ship. So we would have to see with Windows 12 lots of enhancements to the Windows design and UX to accommodate for those different postures. Perhaps a more improved tablet mode that's more similar to the iPad OS sort of experience. That's a very fluid experience, very simple experience. And I think if Microsoft wanted to really push foldable PCs, for tablets that can be laptops, but with just a single screen, that's something I think they would want to invest in quite heavily. Regarding sort of desktop mouse use, I'm not too sure what they're planning there. I highly doubt it would change significantly from what is in Windows 11 today, because that would be crazy. Every 3 years for a major redesign is a bit too often, I think. If we look back in past versions of Windows, the Windows UI didn't change too often. Windows 95 to Windows 2000, they basically look the same. Windows XP to Vista were quite different, and then Windows Vista to 7 were very similar again. So, I would expect Windows 12 to essentially be an update to the Windows 11 design, more consistent, more features and stuff like that. And then maybe on the tablet side of things, we might see some drastic changes there.
Yeah, I mostly agree with your assessment. We're just talking about displays that fold for PCs, and if Microsoft wants to actually take advantage of that, well, they're going to need to optimize the operating system, because right now it is just not a great or compelling experience, and it's an issue I have with these foldable PCs, where I'm not sure yet it's going to be necessarily optimized or deliver an experience that people want. But we'll have to wait and see what they do. I don't expect major UI changes, but some slight modifications. And, we'll have to wait and see. 2024 it's 2 years off, but it's a lot can change in that time. So I'm curious what they'll be doing.
Yeah, and other things we could probably expect to see is under the hood improvements as well. With a longer development cycle, allows Microsoft more time to invest in the platform and improve Windows from a stability and from a mobile perspective. A smaller OS would be great, a lighter OS would be great, an OS that updates faster would be great. All of those sort of improvements I think could be on the cards for a future version of Windows, such as Windows 12. Again, that's a placeholder name. We don't want to nail it into everyone's heads that this will be Windows 12, because it might not be. But yes, I think platform improvements, UX enhancements for, say, foldables or tablets are probably quite likely, and then everything else would just be sort of bonus or enhancements to the existing experience we have of Windows 11. Okay, last but not least, when will we see Windows on ARM devices that can compete with Apple's M1 or M2 MacBooks?
This question everybody loves to ask, and it's obviously very important. The M1 and M2 are definitely impressive hardware. You and I both agree, though, no matter how good it is as a chip, we'll never switch to Mac OS because we just don't like that experience, nor do I like the limitations of the MacBooks themselves. I like a touchscreen. I like a 360 device. I like 5G in my devices as well. And that's what PC delivers, and it's why I stick with it. So getting to this question, I'm going to say 2024. I know that seems a little bit far off, but hear me out. So we do know that the real solution here is going to be Qualcomm. They're going to be the leaders. Qualcomm, recently, about a year and a half ago, I believe it was, maybe even 2 years ago, bought Nuvia. Nuvia was a startup company founded by ex-Apple engineers. Who are these engineers? They were the very ones who developed Apple's A-series chips, all the way up, I believe, to A9. The A-series chips are what evolved into the M-series. They just became bigger versions of it and much more powerful. So those people left Apple, formed their own company, and some were thinking they were going to do that and then either sell back some technology to Apple, or maybe have Apple buy the company back from them, and those guys make millions of dollars. What ended up happening, though, was Qualcomm came in and bought them. So now they have that Apple talent that built what Apple is very successful with those M-series chips, and that's just super interesting. So they've already announced these new Nuvia chips coming out, and in fact they should be shipping to OEMs in late 2022, but we don't expect them to ship into commercial products until fall 2023. Now, those timelines can slip, so we got to be a little bit careful here about committing. Now, that does maybe set up Microsoft to launch a Surface Pro X or whatever ARM device they're using at that time for fall 2023. But I'm hedging a little bit here, maybe with 2024, because, things can slip, but that's the time frame I'm looking at. Now, will it? A lot of people are saying, but by that point, Apple is going to be on M3 or M2 Pro. And that's true. I don't think that the Nuvia team at Qualcomm is necessarily targeting M1. I think they're targeting as fast as they can go and as powerful as they can go. So they said that they can beat Apple. They have publicly said that they can beat them at their own game. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that, but that's the time frame I'm looking for here.
Yeah, and funny enough, with 2024, again, bringing it back to Windows 12, perhaps there'll be some sort of tie-in with marketing there. Maybe Windows 12 has some more enhancements for Windows on ARM that can improve performance there as well with these new Nuvia chips. It's all on the table for 2024. Looks like it's going to be a very interesting year.
And we should also mention companies like MediaTek and Samsung, who make their own processors, may be jumping in on the Windows thing as well. In fact, Samsung's gone really big into PCs lately. They have a really nice lineup. They've updated it 1 year after it came out, so they're keeping on top of it. And the performance of their devices is actually very impressive, but that's using Intel chips. But they do make their own ARM processors, and they have to be thinking doing this for PC as well, because why not? They want to be like Apple so much. They want to control the vertical as much as they can. That includes making their own storage, making their own processor, making their own display, making their own laptop. So Samsung is a company I would also watch in this space as well. All right, that does it for this episode of Ask Windows Central. Remember, if you have a question, you can follow us on Twitter at Daniel_Rubino and follow Zach at Zach Bowden. You can also drop me an email at daniel@windowscentral.com. Just put Ask Windows Central into the subject line, so I'll actually see it and file it away. Other than that, we'll see you in a couple weeks. And don't forget to tune into our podcast every Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time on our YouTube channel. Take care, everyone.